Every HTML element has a display and visibility property. The display property is generally set to block, inline, or none. Block elements always sit on top of each other by default. Elements that have a block behavior by default are elements like div, p, and li. These elements always move down to a new line when they display. Inline elements are elements like span. They don't create more vertical space unless they're forced to. I'll show you an example of this in just a moment. Visibility, on the other hand, this is another property you'll come across quite often in web programming. The li elements we've been working with are visible by default, but let me show you what happens when you set visibility to hidden. Let's go back to using the nth child trick to manipulate some display and visibility properties of this third element that's in our list, the one that says blueprint. First, what I'm going to do is say display none to see what impact this has, and refresh the page, and you can see that that particular list item is just removed from the page. Not only does it not render, but there's also no space there to render it in. So both the content and the space it had reserved, the box had reserved, are both gone. And that's a little bit different than saying visibility hidden. In this case, the list item will not display, but the space is left behind for it to appear. Visibility hidden is quite often used in combination with JavaScript to make an element appear and then go away, but without impacting the layout of the page. It doesn't make the whole page bounce up and down because the space is still there to display it when it comes back on. Let's remove the nth child bit and turn our attention to all list items. What I'm going to say now is display, and you can see that I can choose from block and inline. I'm going to set the display inline and refresh the browser. And now all of our list items are back and displaying. And there's a couple things to notice. First of all, they didn't create themselves on new lines. In other words, they display inline and will stretch across the page until you run out of space, and then they'll bounce down to the next line. And let me go in and set the zoom out a little bit so this is a little easier to see. And of course, the second thing to notice is that the width setting is no longer in effect. We have some elements displaying that are obviously less than 150 pixels, and this is because you cannot set the width of an inline element. They are going to expand so that all their content fits inside and the padding and the border, but that's it. If we wanted these elements to be inline but still have block characteristics, like being able to set the width, that's another display setting, which is inline block. So now we can have the width, and we can also have these list items arrange themselves horizontally as long as there is enough space to display them all on one line. And hopefully this gives you an idea of the flexibility you can achieve in your presentation just using CSS and markup.